Did you just try catching a fly?
Yeah.
Okay. I like that.
I didn't see the manual coming.
Yeah, I came in. I did.
It came from the back.
I threw it in, man. I was waiting for the opportunity.
And he laughed like he was.
But I was laughing because you were laughing because you didn't see it coming. You're like, oh, I'm gonna sneak up on him now. It's gonna... So if I'm having a problem, I shouldn't call you. Is that what you're saying?
So you can call me. I'm going to have an answer quite quickly.
Because you're going to call.
If my friends are answering, if my friends are picking up the phone.
Yeah, I'm going to put you on a conference call. Hold on.
With Claude.
Cloud code.
Claude code. Yeah. Claude AI. Oh. Did you just try catching a fly?
Yeah.
Okay. Gentlemen.
Hello.
Good morning.
Good morning.
How are you, Vince?
I'm good.
How are you, Julio?
I'm good.
I can't even speak this morning. There you go.
I mean, should we mention that this is the second time we're
Yeah.
this one?
This was.
Should we?
Yeah. Well, anyways, did you guys get to watch a little bit of the Olympics over the weekend?
No. As I told you guys, I'm moving. I just bought a condo and moved into it like last weekend. So it's a no Olympic, no Super Bowl for me this year, unfortunately.
Okay. Did you catch anything?
Yeah, I started watching a lot of the Olympics. My daughter yesterday morning wakes me up at 6:30 in the morning, swings open the door to her bedroom, walks in, whispers in my ear, "Papa, can I watch the Olympics?" It's 6:30 in the morning. Yeah, but they're hot in the morning. I'm like, you're not wrong. Okay, you're right. You're right. Because of the time change.
That's amazing. Yeah, it's pretty cool stuff.
Yeah.
I didn't get to watch a ton of it this year, but I did start watching a little bit of the mogul, the downhill skiing and the challenge.
Yeah.
And one thing that on the AV standpoint that really impresses me is the replays. Like the whole they're shooting the skiers going downhill on the moguls sideways. Then they pause, and then does like a matrix thing where it like the camera advances, the skier stays in the air, and then you're seeing it like snapshots. And I was like, and then it just reminded me of the conversation we had with the Sure guys, about that whole, I forget what the software was called, where you can track the players and stuff like that. But
pretty cool,
really cool. And again, I don't watch sports that often, so this technology must have existed.
Yeah, they were also mentioning about the FPV drones that were
my favorite part.
Like they have a drone following like someone skiing or bobsleighing or going downhill at like more than 100 kilometers.
Yeah.
And have you heard about these drones? These special FPV drones?
Yeah.
They're super small.
Yeah.
And you don't drive them like normal drones. Like you're not watching your drone in the sky. You basically wear like glasses,
VR goggles,
and you are the drone, and you're piloting it like you are in the drone. It's pretty insane.
So I thought that like I have a DJI drone at home. I thought that they were using like some sort of auto tracking, but then the Olympics posted something on their social media, and they actually have like these dedicated drone tents where they're charging the drones. They've got their monitors, and you see the FPV pilots, I guess that's what you call them, like they're in their chairs and they're focused, laser focused, driving these drones. I thought there was auto tracking because even when they were doing the bobsled or the skeleton or the luge, like these guys are taking turns at 80 kilometers an hour, whatever it is, and it's someone that's driving the drone. I thought auto tracking, which was
it's a whole nother level of like drone piloting.
Yeah,
quite possibly the most amazing job on the planet right now.
It's the coolest thing.
And it's funny because I'm a huge fan of Red Bull. I watch Red Bull all the time. Like I have the app and I listen to all kinds of sports. And when I'm on the treadmill, whatever, I like watching, especially skiing, and then in the summer, other sports. But drones was always there, especially FPV drones. But this year is the first time where I'm talking to non-tech people and they're like talking to me about the FPV drones because you can hear them and I found that really interesting that people are starting to notice like how incredible this is,
Yeah.
Anyways, I found that pretty cool. Just a little side note. Yeah. But thinking about the episode topic for this podcast, I was looking through the notes, and one topic that I wanted to bring forward was something that was very reoccurring in my old life when I was doing support or pre-sales, pre-design support. And it was after speaking to a ton of customers, especially on new projects, is common type of infrastructure mistakes. And because of all three of our different backgrounds, I thought it would be a good episode to just touch, a little bit on some of those topics, and even talk about how maybe sometimes we could even just prevent it, but just even talking about it and some of the common points can get people to start asking questions, maybe on site and stuff like that,
or before the project,
or before ideally. The project. Yeah, exactly. And I think some dealers may know it already and some people may not, but it's just, I guess every time the customers used to call me, it was always question. Like, oh, you asked so many questions. Well, it's always to give a good idea of try to prevent something to get a call for tech support after the fact,
I mean, there's what they call a discovery call is an important step in all projects, like in every project, but in AV, it's especially important. And having what they call a statement of work or scope, what the integrator or the professional that's going to come on site is going to do, to be clearly defined. I mean, that's very important.
Yeah.
But there's a couple of mistakes and pitfalls that we can try to avoid by doing the steps properly.
Yeah, and I think no matter the scale of the event, it's always good to be in a good routine or have a good habit of asking the right questions, or at least pre-planning. Like just an example with my guys in, the entertainment company on the weekends, we do a run a show before every single event. And like, we're talking a show with 4 speakers, 2 subs, 4 moving heads. We're not talking about a full on stage production, but it's important that you meet with the guys before you do your run through, no matter how simple it could be, just because there's that opportunity for them to ask those questions or to bring up anything that's on their mind, or because the second you start hesitating in this industry, that's when people start to notice, right?
Yeah.
So if you can just kind of ease the air, make sure everyone's aligned, everything's okay, then you're gonna have a better show no matter the size of it. So it's important that you get in that routine no matter the type of event.
Yeah. Well, especially in your type of in the event, it's high stakes, right? It's especially when it's a wedding and stuff.
Yeah,
there's no take two.
No, and there's a phrase I like is failing to plan is planning to fail.
Yeah.
So and that's true in a lot of verticals. So yeah,
I tell all my clients it's important to have a really solid plan A, but even better than a plan A is a plan B.
That's right.
Because it never goes according to
Nope.
People usually stop just at plan A. This is how it's going to go.
Yeah.
No, it's not. Plan B and plan C all the time.
It just gives me the goosebumps just hearing just a plan A.
Yeah.
Such a bad vibe. All right, let's kick it off. So I had a few points. So number 1 is treating network as an afterthought. And I think in all 3 of our specialties, whether it's broadcast or pro live or integration, network, especially today, is so important. So important.
Yes.
What are some of the things in pro live on the networking side that I know we did a CDJ 3000X podcast and now going Wi-Fi.
Yeah.
Thanks for bringing that up. Relying on Wi-Fi is a bad idea to get going. No matter how powerful is your Wi-Fi, no matter how many nodes in your mesh or how many, Wi-Fi is a bad idea if you're doing any type of live thing. I would say, except for secondary control, like you have a console and you have an iPad that you can use as a secondary controller.
Right.
Let's say your FOH, you're mixing a show, but you'd like to hear what's happening in the middle of the room or on the balcony. So you can bring your iPad and just do some small tweaks from there, but don't rely on Wi-Fi for your whole production or even for controls in the room. You don't want to have the only control panel on your desk in a conference room being something that relies on Wi-Fi, because of course it's going to fail. If Wi-Fi fails, is the device going to come back up with the proper Wi-Fi? With the proper SSID? So many things can go wrong where a wire always works.
Always works.
If the wire's properly wired, obviously, but you'd know from the get-go if the wire is good or not. So
I think in the live space, to your question, Vince, we're in a very interesting time in the last couple of years because there's this convergence of all the different systems now happening on the network. Before it was very separate, right? You had your FOH audio being ran with your snakes and your XLRs, and then you have lighting that's being strictly ran on
the MX.
But now everything's residing on a network, right? From Dante Audio, for example, to even lighting control. There's a lot of nodes now with their own static IPs. To help split the signals and all that. So it's a very interesting topic of conversation. I personally don't have a lot of experience with big tours and huge productions, but from talking to people in the field, now they have network engineers on site. Because everything is running on these networks. So the switches need to be managed properly. Obviously, I say obviously, but for those that don't know a lot of networking, very important that the VLANs are being separated. Are they being separated properly? There's things that I'm not familiar with when we start talking about, QoS or quality of service, IGMP, multicast. Like that is so way beyond my technical scope. But these are things that need to be thought of.
Yes.
Especially if there's new gear coming into play or there's new, hot swaps happening because something else went down. So you need to have your network guy there or someone that has network chops to be able to identify all these issues and make sure that you have the redundancy that's also working properly too, right? So it gets very, very interesting. And that's something personally that I want to learn more about. And I've said this before, like I look up to you guys for your network chops and I definitely want to learn more about it. But those are just some of the things. And even on the smaller productions, like I was saying, something as simple as a static IP, do people understand the difference between dynamic and static for certain devices? Why is it important? Why do you need it? So there's so many different things now that are coming up that's important that we talk about.
VLAN is a big one, as Franco said, from the get-go. I mean, most of the different services should be on separate VLANs.
Yes.
Control, lighting, video, audio, comms, communications. So they should be treated separately. Most likely these days in the same switch, but on a different VLAN. Just like if they were separate switches, it's just more convenient to have them in the same switch with separate VLANs. And network engineering is a big part of it. I mean, as I said earlier, failing to plan is planning to fail. So you need to look at that before. You need to have an IP table knowing which service is going to be on which VLAN and IP addressing, and deal with professional people to do this. As a matter of fact, as you guys know, here at SFM Midwish, we have some engineers for networking. So if as an integrator or as a reseller you're not sure about your network design, you can contact our team, plus services, and we have a look at your network design, and we can help you with your design. So
that's huge, especially for everybody some dealers that are still on the edge of the analog going into the digital world, especially on the AV over IP. I think that's the one that I was I got to notice first going and getting into networking, because just even one transmitter or even just a transmitter receiver on the network, you're flooding.
Can flood the network. Depending on the network protocol it's using. If it's UDP, it's going to flood the network everywhere. So there are some devices, even if there's a network port on it, they're not meant to be in a switch. They're meant to be connected point to point. And most of the AV over IP devices, some of them, like the Bluestream, for example, Bluestream is device. Most of their devices are devices that you should connect together or on a separate, literally a separate network, not only a separate VLAN. So so you're completely right on it. This is not because there's a network port on a machine that it's meant to be plugged in a switch and managed. So that's another recipe for disaster there.
Yeah.
Yep.
And you notice that like a lot of people are, you know, there's a meeting of both worlds now where you have IT and AV having to work together, making that handshake. Do you find that one of the issues is that the AV guys are coming in late into the game, number one, so they're not in that planning process. They're utilizing the existing network infrastructure and hardware, which means that for future deployments or future improvements, you know, maybe that switch can't handle that amount of bandwidth or whatever. Maybe it's not even designed to handle multicast.
Exactly.
All of a sudden you're trying to run video or audio off that switch. So do you find that's a common issue where it's like they're coming in too late and it's like, well, guys, how am I supposed to work with this?
Yes.
I think it's a big package deal. I think one, the IT guys are not informed or trained on the AV aspect, so they don't know that a transmitter will take up 900 megabits per second of bandwidth. They don't know that some of them need jumbo packets required on the switch. Some people don't realize that what Hugo was saying.
Jumbo frames, you know.
Jumbo frames or jumbo packets. But it's either they don't know that you should be segregating your AV on a whole separate network
or VLAN
and some IT guys for the AV guys who are, I think, a little bit more knowledgeable, bring in their own gear. The IT guys are like, hey, this is my network.
Not that,
So I think, and then on the flip side, some AV guys that are just getting into it, sometimes they'll come in with an unmanaged switch. Sometimes
which is a security. It could be a potential security threat for the whole company. You know. Or I mean, some device unmanaged that come from foreign country that are doing stuff on your network. We're not doing politics here, but you need to be careful for that also. One of the issue also is not only sometimes the AV guys come late in the game and speak with the IT guys 3 days before the install, and that causes friction. And in every companies I've seen that, even sometimes in our company. So you need to be planning that ahead, and the best AV integrator would have IT people on their staff working on their project. And vice versa. In the enterprise, at the enterprise level, or in large campus, schools, universities, the IT people most likely have an AV guy on their staff. So that bridges or how can I put it, or reduce the frictions.
I think it's because also, like, just thinking about it, and I could be completely wrong, but you've got the IT people who, the business relies on the network. Let's be honest today, right? You can't receive a PO. You can't, communicate to the warehouse. Everything lives on that network. So there's there's a high regard and a priority for the network, right? Like, no one touch my network. This is literally the beating heart of the business.
And they're right.
And they're 100% right. And then you have, the AV guy that comes in and says, well, I'm just transferring audio over the network, guys. I'm not doing anything crazy, and it's not hard. Positive and negative, we'll just do it on the network now. It's the same thing. We're just changing the type of cable used. And they're like, no, this is our holy grail. This is our beating heart. You can't just come in here and start doing open heart surgery however you'd like to do it. So it's an interesting time for sure. But I do think, like, when I look back, even in the last 2 or 3 years, it's come a long way. Like, people are understanding the importance of it, and a lot more people have the proper staff and employees with the IT and technical knowledge that are able to combine both the AV world and the IT world together. So I think we're in a better place. But like, if we would have had this conversation 5 years ago, it'd be like, oh man, AV guys don't talk to IT guys. At least now we're there where they know the conversation needs to be had. maybe they're having it 3 days before the installation, but at least they're having the conversation versus before it was really two separate worlds. So we're in a interesting time right now.
I still think it gets a bad rap, especially the AV portion, because I think the first thing that IT got to touch outside of their core stuff was security cameras, especially on the when IP cameras started coming, and then shortly after was access control over IP, and then that got on the network, and that's kind of important as well, right, for a business.
Yes.
So I think that's when IT started understanding a little bit more of the
AV.
Yeah, the AV, yeah, because now you're talking about bandwidth, right?
Yeah, security cameras is an AV system.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I still think they see AV as maybe a secondary thing because it's cool toys.
Yeah, it's cool toys. Like, let's be honest, the AV people, we're not the greatest at reading manuals. Like some technical guys, like I'm sure Hugo reads every single manual.
You'd be maybe surprised that I don't read manuals.
Okay, there you go.
The thing is, I know a lot of people, so if I see a new device in front of me, I'm going to call someone who has used it before, and he's going to help me figure it out. Yes, sometimes I'm going to read the manual. You're right, but I don't read the whole manual. I'm extensively using search in PDFs. So if you give me a paper manual, it's completely useless to me. It needs to be at least as an index or a table of content that I can search into. But
you learn something new every day on the podcast.
You can do Control F or Command F in the PDF.
Yeah, I'm getting there slowly. I like to, MacGyver it, learn a little bit. That's how you learn, through mistakes.
Yeah,
not on someone else's network, on your own network.
Yeah.
But
my philosophy was, if I can, I'm a little bit more technical, but if I can't figure it out without reading the manual, there's a problem. But that's not always the case, because then you're not. I'm the type now that when I buy a piece of gear, I want to maximize like every little bit of it. I know you're into, like, you guys are into the whole Apple ecosystem, so am I, but you guys are more into it. I think I'm just tired of getting into the whole tech thing, but yeah, I mean, that's the only way to really get into it.
So if I'm having a problem, I shouldn't call you? Is that what you're saying?
So you can call me. I'm going to have an answer quite quickly.
Because you're going to call.
If my friends are answering, if my friends are picking up the phone.
Yeah, I'm going to put you on a conference call. Hold on.
With Claude
Code.
Claude Code. Yeah, Claude AI. Another common infrastructure mistake, I think, that is very, very not spoken about, very underrated, is power. And we had a whole episode on power.
Yes.
But power and grounding, and I think, is something that is such an afterthought. What do you guys think?
It is. And you know what? It's, we're talking about planning and speaking to the right people at the right time before you're doing your integration or your production or whatever. The amount of times where, you show up to a venue and the circuits are being shared with
hair dryer,
using the
toaster,
with the warmer plates, or the guy turns on his vacuum, or even like larger loads, like sharing with an elevator, for example, whatever it may be. But you'd be surprised at how dirty power could be in all these venues, especially when they've undergone lots of renovations. They try to save a quick buck somewhere, but it's the same type of thing, learning which circuits are where, whatever it is. Like, unfortunately, after too many mistakes or issues, now I go with a circuit tester everywhere, and I find out, which circuits are where, even though some of them are labeled and they're labeled improperly, or you'd be surprised how many people switch a faceplate because one got damaged. You know what I mean? So you just got to pre-plan and plan for the worst as well, right? So then you get to understand, okay, this venue's power is good, this venue's not. And, the days of pulling out the ground plug on your Edison plug, not a good idea anymore, right? Like, the equipment is so sensitive nowadays, but now we've got some pretty cool equipment where you can do like ground lifts and stuff like that to reduce the humming noise. Yeah. But people think, it's my speakers, or it's this, or it's that. And, back to that podcast, it's often not the gear, it's the power that's causing all these little issues, right?
Will you be able to put the link for our firm?
Yeah, I'll put it up.
So power planning is very, very, and sometimes, you know, because you're a temporary visitor to that venue or that location, you don't have as much control as you'd like. So you have to make the best of the situation. But there are ways to remedy it, you know, making sure you have the power conditioners or surge protectors everywhere. So it's it's definitely very, very important. And balanced audio, like it's all little things like that that are super important.
I need to admit, power is not my forte, so I'm going to rely on you for those questions. But how are you planning power-wise? Are you visiting the venue first with your tester just to?
Yeah, so it depends. I mean, working in the same city for so long, you have an idea of, you know, what the reception halls look like or the venues look like. Before, we used to use the venues distros, you know, out of pure efficiency, and you know, you don't have to carry a distro with
out of pure hope.
Yeah, pure hope. And you know, let's be honest, a lot of these venues, it's a 30 amp plug going into an electrical panel made by the mechanic's brother, you know, and you're hoping for the best, and it's the distro. No, you have to invest in your proper distro that'll go from, you know, a TL4 to your distro. You're using the right plug, the right power. And then from there, at least you can trust your distro. You know, it was well built. It was built to standards. And then from there, wherever you're going. So my audio has a power conditioner in my rack, you know, with my mixer and all that. All my speakers go through it. Same thing with the lighting. So yeah, it's because I've been burnt in the past. And same thing with the installations. How many times, you know, do we forego the surge protector or the power bar because they don't want to invest in a $300 power bar? Well, guess what? It makes a big difference.
Yeah. And when you fail with power, basically, is this like your speakers are shutting down, your whole system goes down? What's the breakers? What are a few examples that you failed on planning with power?
Well, number one is the humming. Right?
Okay. Yeah,
you're doing
obviously.
For example, I mean, I do a lot of weddings, so I'll use it as an example, but you're in a quiet room. It's a ceremony. It's the most important moment of the person's life, of the people's lives. And all you hear is, and then someone's talking.
But that could be like singing bowls, right? Like you're doing meditation.
Nowadays, yes. I'm surprised at what people do at their ceremonies.
People sleep with white noise these days.
Yeah. But, you know, that makes a big difference. You're trying to focus on the beautiful moment that's happening, and all you hear is a static humming noise coming from the back, and then you know, ground lift, and you're good to go. So making sure you're using the right cables, balanced wherever you can. So it's all these little things that add up. And again, sometimes, look, I'm not an electrician, so I'm not a professional, but you're just trying to mitigate the situation as best as possible, right? Sometimes it works really well, 98% of the time. And sometimes there's just, you know, you can't troubleshoot it on the spot, and it is what it is. And the power coming into the building is just not good.
Yeah.
You know,
I guess this is where like battery powered speakers can be useful because they're not even plugged to the electrical grid.
100%.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I'm trying to push some Electro Voice products here.
No, it's true, right? Like, I mean, exterior plugs too. God knows what happens there. And GFCIs, like I don't use GFCIs outside, in the sense that if someone tells me, hey, there's a cocktail outside there, and you got to plug into this plug, it's the only one that we have, and it works. Trust me, we know it works. We do it every single weekend. And I look at the plug and it's a GFCI circuit. Do we all want to guess how many times that GFCI trips? Do we know what happens when a GFCI trips and pops after 100 times?
Yeah.
It actually fails.
Yeah.
Like a lot of people don't even know that, but there's often a green light. And if it turns red, the GFCI is smart enough to tell you, hey, you know, my breaker's done. You need to replace me.
Yeah.
People don't know that. And people might think, oh, it's just momentarily, like, oh, it's going to trip and just reset it. Well, if you're on the last legs of that outlet, you're done. Now your whole cocktail setup's done. So actually in those situations, I'll always look at the outlet. I'll see what it is, see what else it's connected to if I have that information. But oftentimes I will opt out for battery because you never know. The amount of times where it's a beautiful sunny day and the breaker's tripped, you know, or the GFCIs are in series. Like things that you would never think would happen to you happen, and all of a sudden the irrigation system for the plants is going off, hits the outlets that's there because it's not planned properly, and now all the GFCIs around the building pop.
Yeah.
I've seen it happen. So it's a matter of planning properly,
So 20 years ago, or even more than that, I DJ'd for like 3 years, and my first gig was at I thought it was at somewhere special.
He never told us he DJ.
No, because it was a very small period.
And that's the point we have all in common. I've been DJing for 18 years.
Well, very little.
Okay.
Very
but
little.
3 years is a good chunk, anyways.
Very good. What are you talking about?
Very little. So anyway, my first venue, I get there, and this is, I guess, a newbie mistake. I was just in charge of the music, right? So I had 4 towers, 2 subs, and then I get there, and I got there early to set up, making sure everything worked, whatever. Sure enough, there's a lighting guy. So now the lighting guy has an extensive set of lights. Like, it's not just like, the washes, but like a lot of moving heads. Like, it was a
production.
It was a nice production. I was really surprised. Next thing you know, we're doing running tests together. He was there early too. We start popping breakers one after the other. Next thing you know, he ended up making something on a plywood, a distro on a plywood, running it outside another. And again, like to your point, the hall, all the outlets were like 15 amps, or they were all in the same circuit. What a nightmare. And if it wasn't because we got there slightly earlier, that would have been a complete nightmare, and again, that's sometimes it's tough to know in advance, because the guys didn't even know. Like, we're talking with the
booker.
They don't know. You know what I mean? Yeah. So they don't know.
But I will say today's technology has gone a lot better. Like the amps, for example, are so efficient. On a powered speaker, like a K12.2, I think takes less than 2 amps.
Wow.
So technically you can put all your speakers on a single 15 amp circuit, and you're laughing. A lot of the lighting now is LED, right?
Yeah, that's
Before you have to really calculate, moving heads. You have a 5R moving head with a Philips lamp in there, and it's taking, 8 to 9 amps. I could be wrong, but let's just say it's that. Yeah, you better not put both moving heads on the same circuit. So more cabling, more
Yeah.
I think I've said that 100 times. More cabling, more labor hours, more. But it's true, right? Like, that's what we're trying to reduce. Is we're just trying to make it simpler for everybody. But no, power has to be really looked at. There's better transformers nowadays. Make sure your signal paths are isolated.
Yeah.
All these little things add up. Like I said, help you mitigate the situation a little bit better.
Yeah. And same goes for the integration side. I think if you look even here at all the desks, there's like a small UPS. I think that should be standard in a lot of stuff, especially if you're whatever it is, especially projectors. Like, a lot of people don't understand, like, you can't just shut off a projector without making sure that cool down, because
you're gonna burn the lamp.
Exactly.
Especially those laser lamps, like
which there's no replacement for laser lamps. So power is super, super important. And I think we spoke about this a little bit, and I think we're going to see a recurring theme here, which is networking. But bandwidth planning, and I think, again, people that don't know or haven't really done the switch completely into AV over IP or into the digital side. In audio, we look at, efficiency, we look at wattage, we look at sensitivity. When we're looking at AV stuff, especially on the IP side, it's bandwidth, and it's, we're looking at, is 1 gig enough? Do we need a 10 gig in some circumstances, or I think that's an interesting one.
Yeah.
If you don't know,
need to sit down and calculate how many signals. Again, audio doesn't take too much bandwidth. We all know, unless you work in very, very high resolution like 192. So you can get away with a 1 gig with a 1 gig backplane. Yeah, with a 1 gig network for most of your audio needs. But when you get into video, depending on the codec you use, depending on the raster size, the resolution, you really got to sit down and make some calculations. But you're right. Don't just hope that it's going to work. Just sit down and how many streams I have, what's the backplane of my switch, what's my connectivity. So those needs to be taken into consideration. But we already spoke about network a lot, like early in the podcast. But yes, this bandwidth is important.
Yeah, but
and, that goes just like electricity, just like power. You need to have the proper pipe to carry those signals.
Yes, and headroom. And you were mentioning, I think one thing, that big misconception about bandwidth is people realize, oh, there's 24 ports and I can have 24 ports. So it doesn't work that way. That's something I think so. I know that when I first started in the industry, I was doing a lot of 70 volt stuff, and they're always like, yeah, you always calculate 20% headroom, and networking is the same thing. Yes. You always calculate at least a 20% headroom on the switch, and people are like, I got 24 ports, and and then I'll daisy chain.
Well, you now just PoE.
I'll plug another unmanaged switch in the back, and expand my switch with more smaller switch. No, that doesn't work that way.
The pipe analogy is actually a really good one.
Yeah,
that's a very good analogy.
But it's the same for the power.
Yeah, you have a 10 gig switch, and all of a sudden you're putting 1 gig, unmanaged switches at the end. Doesn't make any sense, right? So you have to make sure that the whole system is designed properly. Yep. And like I was saying, PoE, right? How many types of PoE do we have nowadays?
Yeah.
I think 3 or 4,
PoE plus, and plus, I think now. So you have to also plan for that too.
Yeah, so, and that's huge. And
those are sensitive switches.
And be careful because there are some devices who requires PoE plus. I'm thinking about a camera that just came out. If you plug a PoE plus in it, you might break it.
Really?
Yeah.
It's interesting.
For that specific camera, it's more of a firmware thing, but you need to be very careful when you plug like the wrong type of PoE in the device that should accept like plus, and you plug plus in it.
Yeah.
Sometimes it can.
Yeah, sometimes. Yeah.
Like I said, PoE, it's so sensitive.
But that's funny because we just spoke about power and then we spoke about bandwidth, and PoE is like
it's combined together.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
I mean, since we're talking about switch power and bandwidth, you also need to plan your PoE budget. If your switch has a certain budget of watts, you can't go above that because it's going to be problematic.
So I have a question. Do you need a buffer for PoE budget as well? Like you were saying about 20% for bandwidth, but for PoE, like if it's 100 watts PoE, can you max it out on 100 watts, or is it a good idea to have a little bit?
You know what?
Buffer?
Sometimes in life you need to admit when you don't know.
Yeah.
This time I don't know, so I'm going to defer to Vince if he knows.
He's going to call.
Yeah, I haven't heard anything in all my professional career about having a so I don't know 100%, but I'm almost certain that no, there is no, and most of the time, some of the products that we see that they require PoE or PoE plus, they're never hitting that. Let's say it's a 60 watt. It's never 60 watts. It's like 50 watts, 45 watts.
So it's creating automatically almost like a buffer in the sense that you're not using max capacity.
Well, it's just because I haven't seen a specific electronic device that is rated exactly for the spec. So PoE isn't 15 watts. It's in the range of up to 15 watts, which is 7.5 watts, 10 watts, 12 watts.
What I've seen also is typically when you see a rating on a device that requires PoE, it's going to basically put the max at boot, the max it could take. And I would believe that they put a little bit of headroom there. Yeah. But I don't have the...
Yeah.
I feel like another thing that I like to bring up, another subject, is planning for serviceability or future planning. We kind of spoke about it in the network discussion. But... a lot of installs, like how many times do you show up and there's no service loop? It's like something as simple as that, creating service loops for your network cables or any of the cables in the rack, behind the rack. But it's important, right? Not having enough slack to pull out the rack and actually work on it comfortably. These are all little things that when you're in the moment and you're trying to get the problem solved, you're not necessarily thinking about it. But for future calls or future deployments, super important that these things are all thought of.
Big time.
And implemented.
There's nothing more frustrating than to get the service behind the rack, and it's extremely difficult.
Yeah. No, it's
everything's like, I mean, it's good to tie wrap stuff, but don't over tie wrap things,
Yeah.
Don't leave that amount of like loose for me to unplug and plug something.
Yeah.
Guys
that dealers that I used to speak to that are getting into, I always thought myself as an educator, and in pre-sales design there was no sales attached to my job, but I always love educating dealers and just having that conversation with them. I'd love to kind of just promote best practices. And one thing that I love just putting on the quote, and it wasn't even that much money, it was like a Rhino label maker, just to label. And the most frustrating thing is, especially both on the resi and on the commercial side, I always told customers, they're like, oh, what should I pre-wire for? Pre-wire for this and add an extra cable just in case. You don't know what gets nicked. You don't know what happens, right? And what's the price of an extra Cat 6, Cat whatever, it's not that much money. But then having pulled 2 or 3 Cat 5s and you only need one, which one is it? Well, label it, right? Yep. And that just saves a whole bunch of, okay, well, you got to get another guy to test or put a tester and then, go back and forth to see which one it is. You have to terminate all 3 in order just to test. Forget it. Just label. Takes
big fan of color coding, I think, you can label, that's good, but having different colors for different VLANs or different things is also very useful.
Yeah.
I'm not saying don't label, but if you know that red is for audio and yellows for video and blues for control, that also helps.
Yeah.
Instead of having a snake of white Cat 5 cable coming out of the wall unlabeled.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, even in the live space, like even for my own productions, I'll have, we're always using the same batch of XLRs, right? We're not replacing them every year, obviously. And we test them every single year before our year starts and all that. But I'll make sure that if we have, let's say, even if it's just 2 speakers, I'm going to make sure that the 2 XLRs I'm using will have some sort of uniqueness to it, meaning one of them has red tape on it, one of them has yellow tape on it. Because if something goes wrong and you've got a ton of XLRs for whatever reason, you're doing a small band and like your snake is just getting out of control. We've all been there where we have to set up really quickly and it's not the most organized. But you need to know exactly where that cable starts and where that cable ends. Because if there's an issue, you need to know which one. You can't just start unplugging things out of the mixer because, it's a troubleshoot. So it's important that all these little things, are taking, labeling. See, it's what's cool about this conversation is how you realize that all these themes are extremely relevant in all 3 of the categories.
Yeah.
Yes, they're different in certain situations, but they're all similar.
Challenges are the same.
That all the challenges are the same. Yeah. So it's
labeling. We're talking about. You mentioned IP fixed addresses and stuff. That was one thing, and I know you and I had a conversation, and we were kind of debating on there's certain times where you'd want to stay with dynamic, and other times you'd want fixed. But when you're doing a fixed install, I always think it's ideal to hide somewhere the IP address. It doesn't have to be where the public sees it. Obviously, you don't want that information floating around, but for serviceability, it's always nice to like pull up whatever, a speaker or whatever, and hey, the IP speaker, I got the IP address here. I don't have to look through the MAC address or
and you start using
whatever
IP sniffers. Just be organized. 100%.
And some of the device on the market right now, I'm thinking about the Bird Dog cameras, they have an e-ink display on them, and they have their IP address written on it.
Very cool.
And even if you unpower it, even if it's not powered, you see the last used IP address.
Really?
Yeah. So if you lock it to an IP address, it's going to remain there. Yeah,
that's very cool.
every switches I'm using here at SFM Midwish for my demo purpose, I always write the VLAN 10 IP address on it. And I shouldn't do this, but because those are my switch, I put the password and the login.
Yeah.
So this way, if one of my colleagues has to deal with it, he knows what's the IP address of the VLAN. He knows the login and password to get in the switch.
Thank you, Hugo.
Yeah.
There's nothing more frustrating than to be like, hey, I need your switch. You take it and you're like, what's the username and password?
Not having to reset the switch.
Yeah.
Takes another 20-something minutes just to get set up.
Yeah.
He's a man of the people.
Because he reads the manual. Oh man.
One manual I read though, and it's bookmarked in my notes, is the Netgear AV manual. I have it.
Yeah.
That's the manual I read. This is maybe an exception.
Funny though is like we laugh about these manuals, but the amount of times the manuals has saved us.
Oh yeah.
All of us.
Yeah.
And the first question, I'm sure when you guys troubleshoot, or you out of all people, is did you read the manual, or did you check this? Did you check that? And we all have that friend that's like, hey, read page 18, bottom paragraph.
Yeah.
It's there. And you're like, yeah, you're right.
Yeah, when I'm doing troubleshooting in our ticketing system, I'm going to defer to the manual. If I answer a question,
No, of course.
I pull out the manual, find the page, send the page to the customer or the end user. So yeah.
A lot of guys that start DJing or whatever, and they'll call me, they'll ask me questions. What should I do? How should I set up my my road cases or whatever it may be? The first thing I tell them is, when you buy your moving head road case, for example, you want to fit two moving heads inside. They're like, what accessories should I put? Do I keep the power cons in the case? Do I put them with my power cables? What do I do? And I tell them, look, you're going to find a workflow that works for you. But the first thing you put in that road case is the manual of whatever equipment's in there. And they're like, really? What do you mean? They're like, just find that on my phone. Yeah. Trust me, print it out and put it in there.
Yeah.
Because it's personally saved me, where you're on a gig, your phone's at the DJ booth or FOH or wherever it is, and you're like, why is it turning off, or whatever it may be. You look at the manual, you're like, oh, last DMX state, you got to change the setting. And on these moving heads, for example, the menus are not always extremely clear, and they're really deep.
And they're on a small...
Yeah, they're on a small little, screen, and you're on a chair in front of 200 people.
Or you're in a ladder.
Yeah, so you want that manual really fast and really easy to access, and not on your phone and your brightness goes down or it locks, because by the time you look at it, these are all little things that are really important. So the first thing I tell them to do is take a Ziploc bag, because it's going to get damaged.
Yeah.
Take a Ziploc bag, put the manual in there, and just keep it at the bottom. I don't care if it's covered with all your cables and whatever, or you never look at it. At least you know it's in there if you need it.
Franco, every time he goes on a road trip, even though he has the GPS, he prints MapQuest.
I do.
MapQuest, yeah.
It's true. And I carry a...
Is it true?
Absolutely. And I have a little pigeon that sits on my shoulder. And if I get lost and the MapQuest flies out the window, I send a little pigeon up in the air. And it tells me exactly where I am in the scheme.
So going back
talking about Plan B, I think the next topic on the run sheet is redundancy, right?
Well, hold on. I want to talk about one thing: the importance and the importance of reading the manual.
Oh, we're back to that again.
Redundancy.
No, one more time. No, but all seriousness,
Don't like manuals, guys. Come on.
I'm looking at it in the terms of pre-design, especially when we're looking at specs. Specs isn't always, and we're always quick to look at the spec sheet and says, yeah, it does that. But then you get to the install, and then you're like, it's not working quite as
advertised.
Yeah, as advertised. And then you look in the manual, and then there's like a little asterisk that says, yeah, but this doesn't output to the HDMI doesn't output to 2-channel or whatever.
If the SDI is activated, or NDI cannot work with SDI or stuff like that.
Yeah,
like they made decisions based on the CPU power they had in the machine, and they can't combine two things together.
Exactly.
Yeah, you're right.
And I'll give you another.
But once you're in the field, it's probably too late.
Yeah,
or you have to make a decision there.
Yeah, and I don't want to put down a brand, but I had quoted and it said 70 volts, and we assume that both channels are 70 volt, but it's not true. If you want to use 70 volts, it's one channel.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So
And it's not on the cut sheet.
and it's not on the cut sheet. They just say 650 watts, 70 volts. But then when you look in the manual, it specifically says as soon as you flip the switch to 70, it's one channel.
But I will say that happens to almost every single product on the market. Like there's a very fine line between like the marketing of the product and then the actual usability of it. And that's where, ethically, I do strongly believe the manufacturers need to be true to the spec sheet and the marketing of it, because that happens all the time.
Yeah.
So it's important that, yes, you're actually reading the manual to find these little nuggets of information where, yeah, technically the marketing is not wrong, right? It could do that, but what's the not the consequence, but what's the opportunity cost of doing it, right?
Yeah.
Like something's got to give, and that happens with every single product.
Yeah.
So that's why I think that also impacts brand loyalty too, right? Like people, when people are able to trust a product and they trust a brand because what they're reading is 100% true. We could talk about speaker measurements for days, right? Like there's a lot of marketing that goes into that. Who says that they measure it at a certain distance? Who says that they don't? Their speaker all of a sudden is at 139 dB at 5 inches away. Okay. But you know what I mean? Like there's a lot of that stuff that goes on, and end users are not always aware. So I think that's a whole other podcast subject. But the marketing of our equipment, there needs to be a really clear ethical way of advertising it, because if not, it really impacts the design and everything that comes before and after that implementation of it. So it's
but I get like you can't put an asterisk on everything and then have a whole other page on conditions that have to be met. You know what I mean? So I get it, but that's another reason why people should, or at least use Control Find or Command F to look for specifically if they're getting that request for that specific feature. Look at the spec sheet, but then take the extra 5 minutes because it can save you hours and so much money, right? Yeah. Then redundancy, like you were saying.
Yeah. Having a plan B, we mentioned that, or even a plan C. And when we talk about redundancy, sometimes if you want to go full redundant, you need a separate network, like a second, the primary and the secondary on a Dante equipment. Technically, if you want to be fully redundant, that secondary should be in a different network.
And that's just your base level. That's not even with the rest of the network, how it should be. Yeah. Everything should be redundant. Yeah. But I think that's a very difficult conversation I find to have with an end user, just because they don't always understand the potential.
What we call it, I don't know if you've been using that term, but in broadcast, it's very important. It's called tolerance to risk.
Yes.
If you're on air, like on a national TV, broadcasting the Olympics, because that's the topic right now, we're in the Olympics, everything is redundant. They have a second line coming from Italia right now, like from a different network path. So if the line number one goes down, they have a second line. They can a backup line. Really? They still can stream. They still can send the signal. But it serves nothing to have like two ways of streaming to Canada. Everything before that needs to be redundant also. Yeah. We're talking about redundant power supply, redundant switches, redundant network. Everything's double. So it's tolerance to risk. I mean, if you can't afford, it's going to cost twice. So you need to be, really depends on your tolerance to risk. So
that's right.
I think people also don't know how to talk about redundancy. For example, when you're selling a service, redundancy, yes, it'll cost you more money. But like you said, in the long run, it might actually save you money. So it's a sales. How do you have that sales conversation? How do you prepare people to have that conversation? When I was working heavily in the wedding industry, talking about redundancy was actually one of the key topics.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's like, I identified it. Someone had told me, a mentor had told me, like, talk about your backup options. What happens if, back in the day, we're using CD players, but what happens if your CD player goes down? Oh, yeah, you're right. Okay. Well, I have a secondary source of music. So if you're doing your first dance, flip a switch, bang, the song's still playing somewhere else. Or something else will play, but at least there's no dead air. oh, really? Okay, that's so smart. See, I never even thought of that.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden you've gained their trust, right? So it's like you have to identify why is it important to them? How much money is it going to cost them? And the best part is if you can offer redundancy at a fraction of what they're expecting, you've won the bid, right?
Yeah.
You've won,
Yeah.
But I would argue that both examples you guys used are high tolerance to risk in the sense that we're talking about the Olympics.
Low tolerance to risk.
Yeah. And
High budget, low tolerance to risk.
I see what you're saying. Like if it's a cafe and you're running audio,
yeah, exactly. Or even an office.
you're
like
telling the guy to spend
yeah.
money on a separate system or run extra cabling. It's going to cost him X amount. And the guy's like, well, I don't care
if I don't have music in my cafe. If my cafe is
for an hour.
Yeah. Not going to cost me anything. I mean, people are going to drink their coffee in silence.
Exactly.
You're
right. It depends on the situation.
Yes.
And I think that conversation should still be had.
Yes.
Not to dissuade them from not having that conversation.
Yeah. The right question is, what is your tolerance to risk?
I think tolerance to risk is the good approach, I find.
And redundancy doesn't have to always be expensive. That's what people don't realize.
No.
You take the cafe example. You have 2 hanging pendants running off an amp and a media player. You know what? Run some extra cabling and at least tell the guy, hey, look, if something happens or your electrician comes in or your plumber comes in and nicks my cable or whatever, don't worry. I have an extra one in the ceiling.
Yeah.
We'll be fine. I'll be able to fix it within half an hour.
Or having like some type of Bluetooth solution somewhere. Like it's my plan B.
Yeah.
Those are
going to have
still
music.
redundancy.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, it's not a foolproof secondary amp with a 4th speaker that's never being used in the back, storage room. I agree. There's different levels of redundancy,
Yeah.
but at least you're still offering some sort of redundancy, and that's what's important.
Yeah.
It goes from, let's say, backup plan to full redundancy.
Exactly.
And it's going to depend on your tolerance to risk and your budget.
Yeah.
And on that note, I had a dealer, he asked me to come and do an install with him. And it was at a high-end restaurant. And we get there, and this goes into my next topic, which was he had no redundancy. But the amp, which was this wasn't even well thought out. It was just put together beforehand. And we were kind of, he was mandated to kind of rip everything out and redesign it properly because
using the same infrastructure or a new infrastructure that he was pulling.
Same infrastructure,
okay.
But the environment was
redone.
bad.
Okay.
No, so in this case was cooling in an environment that was the infrastructure mistake, right? He had the massive multi-channel power amp with a mixer board, like a slider mixer board for like audio in the restaurant, but it was in a closed cabinet. And I think he went through like 3 multi-channel amplifiers just because of the
ventilation.
No ventilation or anything. So that was like, I think cooling. And I sold racks. I sold racks at one point, and that was probably the best training I've ever had on just
airflow,
thermal. Yeah, I was learning about thermal. So important, especially for electronics, and we're talking about in the rack. But even if it's a piece of gear in a cabinet, it should be cooled. So it's that's another thing that people don't often. Is like an afterthought, which is, where are we putting the gear and is it getting proper ventilation? Because it will go. And you're talking about saving money or people are like, I don't want to spend money on redundancy. Well, if you don't put it in the right place, that piece of gear that's going to last you 20 years is only going to last you 3 years, just because of the amount of heat, right? So and I'm sure it's like that with, especially on the broadcast side. And I'm sure it's like that.
Oh, yeah. How many people get a 10U rack and fill it up to the max and they leave no space in between amps, mic receivers, whatever. Even if you think it's not getting hot, it is getting hot.
Yeah.
The second you start putting 2 electronics together, you're going to have heat, right?
Yeah. Having these small thermometers that you can stick on the side of, or even magnetic, just put one there and see how hot it gets.
Yeah.
You'll find out.
Leave space between some of those critical components.
Or even
buy a 16U rack to put, or let's say a 12U rack to put 8 8
100%.
rack mount equipment.
That alone will help.
Yes.
Yes, fans are suggested and airflow, and you also ambient temperature in the room, right? How many mechanical rooms you walk in, you open the door, and it's like you're walking into a sauna. It's because all the equipment is generating so much heat.
Yes.
So a lot of people actually will put a small wall unit to try to cool the ambient air so that the rack is able to perform. But again, all little things make a difference.
And by the way, not all racks need a fan, so you have to be careful with that. So learning in thermal in a rack, depending on the type of rack that you're putting and the gear and the placement, there's a natural flow that happens. Obviously, heat rises, cool enters. So sometimes a fan could also hinder in certain cases. You have to be careful about that. And then depending on, you're supposed to be calculating at least which one is the hottest, and you don't want to put a 20-inch deep piece of a gear at the top,
like a server.
Yeah, at the top. It should be at the bottom, and so on and so forth, right? So there's so many things to look at.
Rack planning is also an important
rack planning too. Rack thermals, and sometimes you have rack mountable fans. You have fans that are at the top, some fans at the bottom, and now there's even like pieces of fans that you put on top of the gear, and that helps evacuate the hot air from, let's say, the amplifier, and it pushes it inwards or outwards, which is really cool. But I still think that cooling and even where the gear is going, especially like in an office, people are like, I'll just put the amp in the credenza in the boardroom, get ventilation, because it ain't gonna last long, know. And especially if you don't have redundancy. So
it was a dense episode. But we covered all our topics. That's good.
I think so. Yep. So we did treating network as an afterthought, power and grounding, which was huge, bandwidth planning, which again, there's a whole theme here on networking. No redundancy, having a redundancy strategy if possible. Cooling, and obviously serviceability, which is really interesting.
Yep.
Now, this was our second time recording the podcast because we had some difficulty the first time around,
and we didn't have a plan B.
And we didn't have a plan.
But we need to admit, for our operation here, having a full set of everything double would be quite expensive. So our tolerance to risk is pretty high.
Correct.
For us here at Behind the Rack. So we can afford coming back on the next Tuesday and re-record the episode.
We also had a complete full-blown issues. I mean, normally we have redundancies where the cameras are recording locally. And it's recording through the switcher. This is just nothing was working.
No, nothing was working properly. But I did take the opportunity to take advantage of the little bit of the delay in the time of shooting, and I kind of put up a poll online, both on YouTube and LinkedIn, and I want to share. So I said, what are some of the users' common infrastructure mistakes that they encounter? On YouTube, it was 50% IT and AV teams not aligned early enough, which is funny.
We should do an IT AV group hug session.
You know what?
Everyone's going to be okay.
We have a topic for one of our next podcasts. We're going to sit an IT guy with us, and we're going to have an honest conversation.
Yeah.
Let's get both sides of the story.
Yeah, exactly.
Have a debate. 25%, which was tied. So there was two of them that were tied. Was no proper network planning and poor cable management and labeling, and it was similar to LinkedIn. LinkedIn came out at the highest, IT and AV misaligned. So you can see that no proper network planning. So networking is a huge thing, and it's definitely an episode we should have some networking guys and have that.
I know a couple of guys that could be on that show. So.
Yeah. Awesome.
Hey, thank you.
That was a great episode.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah.
Read those manuals.
Read those.
Plan the network properly.
Yeah.
We got also a couple of good episodes coming up that are going to be really cool outside of talking about immersive experiences
Yes.
as well, which is going to be cool, and how it can touch a little bit of all our, whether it's events, broadcasts, or post-production, and even in installs, which I think is going to be a really cool conversation. So if you guys are interested, don't forget to subscribe, like, and comment on the video, and let us know what you'd like to see next in future episodes.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thanks,
guys.
everybody.
I'll be your love, I'll be your sunshine, I'll be your love, I'll be your sunshine, I'll be your love.